So it is now 4 years after Jimmy Khaki Hardballs came to Michigan, or 5 years. I think it's 5 years. With all the hype and platitudes, with all the absolute propaganda about how he was going to run a tough program and that he was going to be the next Bo Schembechler with a fullback with his thumb on the dirt. And this guy is tragically the greatest imposter I have ever seen in my life. I heard an ex-NFL player commented that he left San Francisco because he couldn't stand Jim Harbaugh. And he said this to my friend's daughter. He was absolutely the dumbest person he ever talked to around football. Now, I don't know if he's that dumb, but as a coach, he's pretty dumb. I mean, all I got to do is look at him. Look at him with his caricature, with the stupid glasses, and he looks like a nerd playing a football coach. I know that seems harsh, but I got to tell you, I look at him and with me, it's really fundamental. I look at a guy and I go, would I want to play for that guy? Does he look like the kind of leader I want to follow? Does he behave like that? Does he say things that make sense? Well, this guy, since day one, has made utterly no comprehensive sense about anything. I knew he wasn't the guy when he completely flummoxed the punt against Michigan State with like 5 seconds left. And of course, that's the famous play where Michigan State blocked the punt and scooped it up and scored the winning touchdown with no time on the clock. And I said to myself, Bo Schembechler would have run that ball and killed the clock. And I told my dad, who has since passed 2.5 years, he ain't the guy. So we blew out Brady Hoke. We brought in Rich Rod the joke, or vice versa. It's like becoming one big, bad, coagulative memory, Michigan football. So we got to go back to Lloyd Carr, who they couldn't run out fast enough. And Lloyd had a respectable program. And I remember a guy, my boy McGinty, saying, we got a nice program. We may not be the best, but we're respectable, and maybe that's all Michigan can hope to be anymore. And that was 15 some odd years ago, maybe a little bit more. And I think about my boy McGinty telling me that, and boy, was he right. Because we went all in trying to be something we could never be. Meanwhile, I look at Ohio State. Have they built a juggernaut? I look at Wisconsin, and I love their coach. I think Wisconsin's got the best coach in the Big Ten. Day's pretty good, too. I mean, he's right up there. But all these hype guys, this Franklin at Penn State, these self-glorifying cartoon coaches. I love Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Great coach, good guy. That's a guy I'd love to play for. But not this guy. He wanted to make Barack and Michelle honorary team captains. Right off the bat, I heard that about Harbaugh, and I said, wow. With all due respect to Bo Schembechler. So this politically correct, silly person with his khaki pants and climbing trees and all the nonsense that he brought to Michigan. Everything but how to win football games. I've seen how many quarterbacks now under this guy, and I can't say they're under his tutelage because he's made every one of them worse for knowing Jim Harbaugh. Every one of them has deteriorated. Every quarterback that plays at Michigan gets gradually worse week to week. So the amount of money Michigan has now spent on this really tragic experiment, the hardball experiment, It's just really tragic. They got to cut their losses here because he's killing the program. I mean, any prospect worth his weight, why would they want to play for this guy? Why would they want to come to Michigan? And it's not like it was 20 years ago where every conference had two really dominant teams. Oklahoma and Nebraska in the Big 12. You had Michigan and Ohio State in the Big 10. You had Florida back then, and who would be the second team in the SEC back then? I don't even think because Alabama wasn't that great. They were respectable. Tennessee. And then that flipped, and now you have Alabama that's just incredible. What a program Nick Saban has built. What an amazing coach. What an amazing mentor. I mean, Nick Saban, you want to see the opposite of Harbaugh? Nick Saban has lost every coordinator that he's had appreciably in the last 8 to 10 years. They come and they go. And all Nick does is win. All he does is win. You look at Ohio State, they change coaches. Head coaches. All they do is win. No platitudes. They just play football and win. They recruit monsters. Somebody was talking last night. When's the last time? It was Kirk Herbstreit. When's the last time Michigan had a really dominant running back? Dominant, meaning top 3 running backs in the country. You got to go back to Tyrone Wheatley, Tim Biakabatuka, Anthony Thomas, maybe. That's 15 years ago. This is a tragedy. This program is finished. I don't know what's going to happen with this team, but you people at Michigan better wake up and smell reality, because this guy has been your greatest disaster in 50 years. 50 years. And so, as I was saying, it's no longer the Big Two, it's the Big Ten. And truly, there are teams now in the Big Ten Conference. I think there's 13 teams. You look at Indiana, boy, that's a sound, solid football team. You look at Northwestern, Fitzy doesn't get the studs Ohio State does, but every 3 to 4 years he comes up with a tough, hard-nosed, fundamentally sound football team at Northwestern. You look at Wisconsin, maybe the most fundamentally sound team in the conference. Ohio State they don't have to be so fundamental. They just kill you with their talent and with their creativity on offense, their speed and physicality on defense. Every year, just book it. And we got this clown. This clown who's somewhere between Revenge of the Nerds and Gary Busey. And if he had any sense of honor, he would offer his resignation. I would say, look, you're paying me way too much money for what I've produced. And going 8 wins, 9 wins at Michigan with their schedule doesn't really mean too much. I mean, even though other teams have gotten better, but they don't play just Big Ten schools. But here's the thing. A program is either progressing toward excellence or it's foundering. And this guy has been a sinking ship since the day he started. He'd have a big win against maybe Notre Dame and then get clobbered by a Wisconsin, get clobbered by Ohio State every year. 1 year he was competitive. 1 year. But fundamentally, this team is lost. They have no identity. They haven't had a quarterback with any real, like they talked about Shea Patterson. Well, first of all, he was developed at Ole Miss. So he came from the SEC with the best competition in the world. So coming to the Big Ten is probably like playing a slower version of what he was used to. But this guy, I don't know what it takes for people to say,
all things
We just listen to him
thoroughly. Not where they need to be in terms of execution. So that starts with, as I said, starts with me, starts with our coaches, and also every person here. Understanding what we're supposed to do, and then going and executing it. If somebody's not executing it, then why is that? We're communicating? Are we coaching it well enough? There's nothing right now to say that an acceptable job is being done right now.
Do you worry that
players or coaches?
Do you worry at all that it's at the point where it's hard to really stop? Momentum works in two ways. Sometimes teams go up every week, and sometimes teams go down. How do you stop it?
You go back and look. Every fundamental possibility, and address it. So you look at what are we doing schematically, and because it can only be those three things. I mean, schematically, who's doing it, what you're doing, how you're doing it, who's doing it. We got to look at all those things right now. And
I mean, do you need to hear any more from this guy?
Right now, I'd say
this guy's lost. But he never sounded cogent, or even in some cases, I got to tell you, he never sounded too sane to me. He's a little unhinged. When Michigan State beat him on that famous punt block, he started talking about a steel shiv in your spine. I mean, they ask him questions. He goes to metaphors that make no sense. The man he's illogical. If you're illogical in how you communicate to the press, you can't string together cogent responses. How do you think your mind works about strategy in the game? Football's a game of chess with big, strong, fast, physical guys. You have to have a hell of an engine between your ears to manage modern-day football. Like a quarterback, you could be the greatest athlete in the world if you can't process information, read defenses. It doesn't matter that you can run and throw. You got to have the intelligence. Football is about intelligence more than ever. Look at Tom Brady. 6th-round draft pick, can't run, can't throw, can't do this, can't do that. All he does is win. You know why? He studies. He's got a processor between his ears. He can read a defense like he's reading a kindergarten book. And you look at the Cam Newtons, you look at the guys that have all the athleticism in the world, you look at them and they're like a physical specimen, and you say, how is it they're so bad? Well, if you look at Patrick Mahomes, listen to him speak, you listen to Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, these are smart guys. These are smart guys. They rub coaches the wrong way sometimes because they're so intelligent. But that's what you have to be today to be an alpha quarterback. Even more so as a winning coach. This isn't about kicking Jim Harbaugh when he's down. This guy's been an imposter from day one. It's not his fault. If somebody offered me $8 million, I'd tell you I'm a rocket scientist. But I'm not. And it shouldn't take 5 to 6 seasons to figure it out. And for every time this guy goes out there and humiliates the program, he's going to cost you 2 years in rebuilding. So you cut your losses, you go get yourself a young, intelligent guy who knows how to coach fundamentally sound football, develop quarterbacks, recruit properly. This guy has coached from point of desperation from day one, climbing trees and going down south and trying to interfere with other programs with these things he was doing that just pissed off everybody. So he started off as a circus act, and I thought to myself, that's not Bo Schembechler. You know, that's not what great coaches do. Great coaches build programs the old-fashioned way. They recruit right. They teach, and they teach. Nick Saban is a teacher. Mullen in Florida. I love this guy, Dan Mullen. What a coach. Jimbo Fisher's a good coach. You hear him talk about the game. I remember when Michigan played the Florida State Seminoles, and they asked the two coaches, Jimbo Fisher from the Florida State and Harbaugh, about the upcoming game. Fisher talked about celebrated programs that were going to meet on the field and yada, yada, yada. And you know what Jim Harbaugh talked about? I love their horse. You know, I love the horse, and when they take the flaming spear and stab it into the turf. And Jimbo Fisher looked at Harbaugh with the most unbelievable look of incredulity you ever saw. It was hysterical. It was as if he was saying, this guy's nuts. And he couldn't hide his countenance. It was funny as hell. And of course, Florida State went out and promptly stomped Michigan off the field, as did Mississippi State and Florida and every other school they played in a big game since Harbaugh's come here. I mean, how many tragedies at Ohio State do we have to endure? These aren't losses. These are humiliating crucifixions. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State used to be a rivalry. Now it's a hammer versus a nail every year. Ohio State's going to beat Michigan by 40 points this year. By 40 points. I predicted Wisconsin would win 45-17. I don't know what the final score was. I turned it off. But it wasn't good. And it was pretty close to 45-17. It was 49-11 or something. I mean, just horrible. This is Michigan, for God's sakes. Remember when Brady Hoke said that? You people up in Ann Arbor, you better get your heads out of the clouds or just drop football. If you want to be, I don't know what you guys think you are up there anymore, this quasi pseudo-intellectual school of nerds want to politic for the Obama crowd. Well, drop football. Because the way this program looks, you'd be better served.